Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling you in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. India writes to Commonwealth Parliamentary Association President asking for changing venue for the Parliamentary Union after Pakistan's decision to not invite the Jammu and Kashmir Speaker. Nitish Kumar reaches out to non-resident Biharis in Delhi, inaugurates Bihar Foundation Day as state elections draw closer. Monsoon wreaks havoc in several states. Flash floods kill 4 in Himachal Pradesh. Landslides lead to the suspension of the Amarnath Yatra in Jammu and Kashmir. 44 people killed and hundreds injured in multiple suicide bomb attacks in the Afghan capital of Kabul. The new wave of violence seen as an after effect of the change in the Taliban leadership. And Michael Clarke announces retirement from Tests after the 5th Ashes Test. Decision after Australia's humiliating Ashes defeat against traditional rivals England. For the top story this evening, India has written to the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association President asking for the venue of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Union meet to be shifted out of Pakistan to another country. On its part, Pakistan remains firm on not inviting the Jammu and Kashmir Speaker to the meet, seen by India as an effort to internationalize the Kashmir issue.
The letter from Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan to Commonwealth Parliamentary Association President Shireen Sharmeen Chaudhary lays down that either the J&K Speaker is invited to the meet or it be moved out of Pakistan. A no to both these options, it stresses, would mean India boycotting the event.
An emergency meeting of the President of the Union chapter as well as the 31 India chapters of the CPA India region was held, in which they called on the chairperson of the CPA Executive Committee to use her good offices to immediately resolve the matter and ensure issue of invitation to the Jammu and Kashmir CPA branch, failing which the India chapters will boycott the event.
The 10-day conference of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association is to be held in Islamabad between the 30th of September and 8th of October. Parties across the political spectrum in India have voiced strong protest at the J&K Speaker not being invited, calling it part of Pakistan's ploy to internationalize the Kashmir issue.
This is a serious issue. The stand taken, if it has been taken, that is absolutely correct. After all, Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. And every time such things happen from Pakistan, even at the institutional level, it only reaffirms a doubt that perhaps they are not interested in strengthening the relationship or improving it with India.
Pakistan has pointed to an old rule regarding the issue in the UN Security Council. Strategic experts in India say this is little more than a deliberate effort to derail hopes of India-Pakistan talks.
नवाज शरीफ साहब और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की बातचीत रशा में होगी, तब से लगातार पाकिस्तान कुछ न कुछ ऐसी हरकत कर रहा है. पहले तो उसकी कोशिश ये थी कि बातचीत को सबोटाज कर ले. ऐसा लगता है कि पाकिस्तान की सेना और वहाँ के जो सिविलियन गवर्नमेंट है उसमें थोड़े सी डिफरेंसेस बढ़ते हुए नज़र आ रहे हैं.
India has proposed NSA-level talks between India and Pakistan on August 23rd and 24th on the lines of the UFA agreement between Prime Ministers Modi and Sharif. Besides the CPU issue, Pakistan has not responded to that invitation even now. The CPU matter and persistent terror from Pakistan remain setbacks to things moving forward between the neighbours. Muhammad Fateh Tipu's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
And former Foreign Secretary Shashank now joins us on the phone line to help us understand, sir, how is this really going to affect relationship between the two countries? Because we've seen, as far as the border is concerned, there have been numerous instances of ceasefire violations. There have been terrorists who have come in from Pakistan, as the Home Minister pointed out. And on top of that, you have such instances that it's not about just the military side of Pakistan, but also the diplomatic side of Pakistan. And it seems that what happened in Ufa, the bonhomie that we saw, the advantage is being frittered away right now.
Well, one thing is bilateral issues, which the two governments can take a decision on, depending on the kind of the background which is there, the kind of feelings which are there in the country at any given point of time. So there, the issues of terrorism or any other incursions, etc., from the Pakistan side may be taken into account. Now, this one is a totally different issue. This is on the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association meeting. There are Commonwealth traditions. There are election processes and legal judicial processes which are followed on the basis of the Commonwealth traditions. Therefore, to do something which is against those traditions, I think that really calls into question the very validity and relevance of Commonwealth and Commonwealth Association in the context of our parliamentary institutions, in the context of our election processes. Because after all, when the Jammu and Kashmir elections took place, there were a lot of journalists and international people who were traveling around. They all knew what kind of elections had taken place. Now, for Pakistan to set up its own standards and judge everyone else according to its own methods is perhaps not correct. And I think this is really affecting the Commonwealth institution as such. So I'm quite sure that the steps which have been taken by the Indian parliamentary leaders to go to the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and ask them to sort it out. It's really for them to work it out.
All right, so you're saying that this really is a matter that perhaps the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association has to settle. But in terms of the ties between the two countries, in terms of just the kind of rhetoric that we've been seeing and those NSA talks that are supposed to happen or Pakistan has to agree to it happening on the 23rd and 24th of this month, do you see that taking place? How do you see the changing scenario between the two countries?
In the bilateral context, I see it in the context of the divisions within the Pakistan polity, that different institutions of Pakistan try to go in different directions. And then one does not know where actually they are heading. So while the Prime Minister of Pakistan and Prime Minister of India agreed in UFA to carry forward the dialogue and there have the meeting at the level of the NSAs, so one thought that there was kind of a situation was being created to improve relations between the two countries. However, what has happened since then shows that really Pakistani institutions are talking in a different way and they have not been able to work out a common platform on which to develop relations with India. That's one. And secondly, I think this Commonwealth, as I said, is really calling into question Pakistan's adherence to democratic election processes, to Commonwealth traditions, Commonwealth systems. You know, in the past also Pakistan has been suspended on a few occasions when they had suspended their own democracy and military rule was imposed. But this changed afterwards. So one would expect that Pakistan would try to follow others rather than setting up its own new kind of systems which they want other countries to follow in the Commonwealth.
All right, Mr. Shank, we'll leave it over there. But thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand this a little better. Well, our top international focus now. On Friday was one of the deadliest days in Kabul, with 44 deaths and hundreds being injured in multiple suicide bomb attacks. Experts say the current wave of violence is a result of the change in leadership of the Taliban.
Multiple bombings rocked Kabul on Friday, killing at least 44 people and wounding hundreds in the deadliest day in the Afghan capital since the end of the NATO combat mission in December. In the early hours of Friday, a truck carrying explosives was detonated near an army base in the Shah Shahid area, claiming 15 lives. Then a suicide bomber blew himself up near the city's police academy on Friday evening, killing about 20 recruits. A short while later, a large explosion was heard north of the airport. The explosions, which devastated buildings and overwhelmed hospitals with casualties, are the first major militant assaults on Kabul since the announcement of Taliban leader Mullah Omar's death. The Taliban distanced themselves from the first bombing that struck near a Kabul military base, as they usually do in attacks that result in a large number of civilian casualties. But the insurgents were quick to claim responsibility for the second attack, which marks a serious breach of security at a premier training institute for Afghan security forces.
یک باشی می شب می این شجاع کجا کلی که مردم از این سر دنیا تا به این سر لرزان تکان خورد. یک دفعه شروع شد. از این طرف هم شروع شد. دایو میفهمیدی که این از اون طرف هم میزن از این طرف هم. تقریبا یکان نیم ساعت جنگ است. دیدیم که می زدن همه تو از این اوضاع طرف بالا.
Observers say the escalating violence demonstrates Mullah Mansoor's attempts to boost his image among Taliban cadre and drive attention away from internal divisions over his leadership. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar was in the national capital today, where he participated in a number of programs. Even though on the face of it, all these programs were non-political in nature, it would seem impossible to keep them separate. He was here to launch the Delhi chapter of the Bihar Foundation.
It seems unlikely that there would be any similarities between Nitish Kumar and Narendra Modi. But believe it or not, they do have something in common. Nitish Kumar has hired the same team of specialists as Modi to handle his election campaign. And so far, the similarities in their campaigns are pretty obvious too. As Nitish Kumar launched the Delhi chapter of the Bihar Foundation today, it was difficult not to notice this being similar to the Prime Minister's connect with the Indian diaspora abroad and the Gujarat diaspora earlier. Nitish is sending out a clear message that he will stop migration from Bihar and bring back those who have already left.
वैसे लोगों को फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए उनको सहूलियत हो, इसके लिए भी बिहार फाउंडेशन का गठन हुआ, जिसको बताया गया कि कोई अगर निवेश करना चाहते हैं, व्यापार से जुड़ना चाहते हैं, बिहार के अंदर के व्यापार से अपनी भी पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं, अपना भी कुछ चलाना चाहते हैं, कोई उद्यम स्थापित करना चाहते हैं, तो उस स्थिति में बिहार फाउंडेशन के माध्यम से उनको अपना काम प्रारंभ करने में सहूलियत हो.
Nitish is aware of his limitations, however. Even though the situation in Bihar has improved in terms of water and electricity, he has been unable to generate enough employment opportunities in the state. Clearly, this will be the opposition's biggest talking point.
इसके माध्यम से बिहार की जो जेन्युइन नीड्स है, उसकी जो वाकई जो आवश्यकता है, उसको भी जगह जगह से अगर हम उठाते हैं, उसको उजागर करते हैं, तो धीरे 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 एक जनमत तैयार होता है.
The past couple of years have seen the emergence of new icons or brands in the political arena, Narendra Modi and Arvind Kejriwal being just two. They have been trailblazers of sorts, changing the way elections are fought and won. Nitish Kumar is hoping to emulate the same model, but it could be a difficult task in a state like Bihar with its own style and brand of politics. With inputs from Shyam Sundar and Anu Diwan, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now to take a look at what else is making news across the country and nationwide. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj has said that India is completing the necessary formalities to bring back Geeta, a hearing and speech impaired Indian woman stranded in Karachi. Sushma also requested the Chief Ministers of Punjab, Bihar, Jharkhand and Uttar Pradesh to help the centre to find the family. Geeta is believed to have mistakenly crossed into Pakistani territory 14 years ago when she was 11 years old. President Pranab Mukherjee today appointed new governors for Bihar and Himachal Pradesh. Ramnath Kovind, a senior BJP leader and two-time Rajya Sabha member, was named governor of Bihar. Acharya Devvrat was appointed the governor of Himachal Pradesh. The appointments will take effect from the dates and the incumbents assume their charge of their respective office. In yet another barbaric incident, 5 women were killed by locals in the Kanjia village in Jharkhand for allegedly practicing witchcraft. The police said that the villagers used lathis and sharp-edged weapons to kill the women. Killings on the suspicion of witchcraft have a highly fair occurrence in Jharkhand, the state accounting for more than 400 deaths because of this between 2011 and 2013. Time for us to take a very quick break, but coming up on the other side, a typhoon Sudalor batters Taiwan. More on that on the other side.
bring to you the National Waterways Bill 2015.
It has a lot of benefits in our economy because it can reach materials and many things to remote areas.
If you build more structures, then there will be huge impacts because of those structures on the river, on the biodiversity, on the people.
Unlike highways, waterways need to have water. That is the prime concern.
Watch Law of the Land, Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, the government has blamed opposition parties for obstructing several important legislations that are considered necessary for the economic turnaround. It said that the opposition is obstructing the key functioning of parliament legislation, and as a result, the economy will suffer, a charge that has been countered by the opposition.
Question 196. Please sit down.
It's a daily story now, with no signs of the opposition relenting on demands that some top BJP leaders resign. Every effort by the government, by the chairman in the upper house, has been stonewalled. The monsoon session, at least in the Rajya Sabha, is headed for a complete washout, with some key parliamentary business suffering in the end.
So there are several bills which have implication on the economy. But the fact that legislation, which is one of the important business of the parliament, is obstructed, definitely the economy and economy-related matters are waiting for this to get cleared, and to that extent, the economy will suffer.
The bills most directly affected: first, the Constitutional 122nd Amendment Bill 2014 to implement a common goods and services tax across the country, pending in the Rajya Sabha. Another important bill on land acquisition is also pending in the Rajya Sabha. A Rajya Sabha select panel has given its report on the real estate bill, but there is no sign that this can be taken up in this session. The Union Cabinet has recently cleared all key recommendations of a select panel of the Rajya Sabha in the hope of getting it through the House.
शासक दल की मनमानी के चलते संसद में गतिरोध है। ऐसे में बिल पास होगा कि नहीं होगा, होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए, ये बड़ी जिम्मेदारी शासक दल की।
Passage of GST and land bills is considered necessary to kickstart any economic turnaround, among the biggest pressure points of the Modi government. Nothing has happened on the economic front after Parliament passed the Insurance Laws Amendment Bill and Companies Amendment Bill 2014. That's where the unending political bickering hurts most. Krishnanan Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
Now, monsoon continues to wreak havoc in several parts of the country. At least 4 people were killed early today in Mandi district of Himachal Pradesh due to flash floods. Heavy rains triggered landslides in neighbouring Jammu and Kashmir as well, leading to the suspension of the Amarnath Yatra.
3 members of a family were buried alive early Saturday morning when flash floods triggered by a cloudburst washed away their house in Dharampur village of Himachal Pradesh. Flood waters inundated almost the entire village, located about 80 km from Mandi, washing away vehicles and cattle. The Sonkhud River, a tributary of the Bias, turned into a torrent following the cloudburst, sweeping away 4 buses at the Dharampur bus stand and leaving the terminal submerged. One person was reportedly washed away in the gushing flood waters.
धरमपुर क्षेत्र में बाढ़ की स्थिति उत्पन्न हो गई थी, जिसमें धरमपुर की बाजार एवं धरमपुर का बस स्टैंड इसमें पानी घुस गया था। अब स्थिति कंट्रोल में है, पानी सारा रेसिड हो चुका है एवं तन्हेड़ पंचायत में 3 लोगों की मलबे के अंदर दबे हुए होने की आशंका है, जिसके लिए रेस्क्यू कार्य चला हुआ है।
Torrential rains lashed other parts of the state as well, causing landslides. More than 100 roads were blocked and as many as 150 water supply schemes across the state were affected. Similar conditions prevailed in neighbouring Jammu and Kashmir as well. Very heavy rains triggered landslides in several areas, leaving passengers stranded for hours.
कह रहे आगे स्लाइडिंग हुई है तो और हैवी रेनफॉल भी होगा तो फिर सुबह तक ही खुलेगा रास्ता।
The Amarnath Yatra was also suspended due to closure of the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway.
जो आज की जो खैरी में जो हमारी पस्सी आई है लैंडस्लाइड हुआ है, कंटिन्यू 2 दिन से बारिश होती जा रही है और आज भी मॉर्निंग में बारिश थी और काफ़ी हैवी लैंडस्लाइडिंग हुई है। बीआरओ और हमारी पीडब्ल्यूडी की टीमें लगी हुई हैं दोनों साइडों से, तो उम्मीद कर रहे हैं हम शाम तक इसको क्लियर कर देंगे।
Meanwhile, in flood-ravaged West Bengal, the death toll has climbed to 100. An all-party meeting was called by Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee over the flood situation today. In many areas, the water levels have begun to recede, following which people in the relief camps have started returning to their homes. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Fierce winds and rains in Taiwan after it was battered by a powerful typhoon Sudalo. 4 people have been killed and several injured. The typhoon left a trail of devastation, cutting power supply to more than 3.22 million households. It's now headed for mainland China and is expected to hit the country later today.
Gusts of wind strong enough to blow away houses, flooding in chaos, wreaking devastation everywhere, and over 3.22 million households without electricity. This is the scene after Typhoon Sudalo made landfall in Taiwan early Saturday. With the strong winds came some 1,000 millimeters of rain in the mountainous northeastern areas. Sudalo swept across central Taiwan, ripping up trees, snapping wind turbines and triggering a landslide. Many residents who were caught in the path of the typhoon were left helpless.
30几年没有遇过这样很紧张，对，一直在搬东西，一直要逃难这样子。看我里面的什么东西都在飘了，在水上飘了，不知道要怎么清理，实在很伤脑筋呢。
The storm is one of the strongest to hit the island in many years. Subways and high-speed train services have been suspended or cancelled. School, colleges and business establishments are shut, and 80 international flights have been cancelled in the affected areas of Taiwan. Typhoon Sudalo is now headed towards China's east coast of Fujian province. Chinese authorities have evacuated 1.5 lakh people from the coastal areas so far. The Tropical Storm Risk website has said the typhoon was a Category 2 storm on Saturday on a scale of 1 to 5 and could weaken to a Category 1 as it approaches China. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news and updates now on Global Buzz. Attackers armed with machetes killed a blogger in his apartment in Bangladesh on Friday. Niloy Chatterjee, used to use the pen name Niloy Neil, was the 4th such victim this year. Chatterjee was also one of the hundreds of bloggers driving a movement demanding the death penalty for Islamist leaders accused of atrocities in Bangladesh's 1971 War of Independence. A former Soviet Army officer has been convicted by a U.S. jury of planning and leading a Taliban attack on American forces in Afghanistan in 2009. Arek Hamidulin was found guilty on 15 counts, including supporting terrorists and a conspiracy to use the weapon of mass destruction. The 55-year-old, who did not testify during the trial, is expected to be sentenced on 6 November. Heavy rains hit Beijing on Friday, leading to massive traffic jams. Beijing's Weather Bureau had issued a warning that storms would flood areas with over 50 millimeters of rain per hour. Flooding occurred as drains became clogged with the leaves and branches blown down by the strong wind that accompanied the downpour. In a bid to ramp up local production of weapons for the troops in the fight against Boko Haram, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has instructed the defense military to create a modern military-industrial complex. The Nigerian army has long complained that the lack of weapons is harming their fight against the Boko Haram Islamists. The six-year fight against the Boko Haram militants has so far left 15,000 dead and left at least 1.5 million displaced. Some sports now, and England defeated Australia by an innings in 78 runs on the third day of the 4th test at Trent Bridge to take an unbeatable 3-1 lead in the 5 matches Ashes series. Resuming the second innings at the overnight score of 241 for 7 of the penultimate Nottingham test, visitors Australia could manage just 12 runs at day 3 and were bowled out at 253. Australia remained in trouble right from the start of this match as they collapsed to 60 all out in 111 balls, which was the shortest completed first innings in Test history. With the victory, England avenged the 5-0 whitewash down under in 2013-14 and extended Australia's winless run on British soil to 4 Test series now. England now lead the 5-match series 3-1 and Australia only have to play for pride in the 5th and final test at the Oval. Meanwhile, Australian skipper Michael Clarke today announced he would retire from Test cricket after the 5th and final match of a horror Ashes series against England. Clarke's prolific career has been marred by nagging back and ankle problems earlier and has already quit the one-dayers and 2020 formats.
Well, not when you perform the way I performed in this series. Obviously, I started this great game at 6 years of age, so it's hard to walk away, there's no doubt about it, but I think it's the right time. I think you, as a player, you build yourself up for big tournaments. The World Cup was that in one-day cricket, and Ashes cricket is that in test matches, and unfortunately, I haven't played as well as I would like, and I think it's the right thing and the right time to walk away now to give, the Australian team and the next captain that chance to prepare for the next Ashes series.
Time now for some other sporting action in SportsBeat. Home Minister Rajya Singh today felicitated the medal winners of the recently concluded Fairfax World Police and Fire Games held at Virginia in USA between 26th of June and July 5th. Singh said the team had made India proud and the tricolour fly high. In 2015 Fairfax World Police and Fire Games, the Indian team won a record-breaking 157 medals, including 88 gold, 49 silver and 20 bronze. The 24th edition of the English Premier League will begin today. The Manchester United will open the new Premier League season to Tottenham Hotspur at Old Trafford. Defending champions Chelsea will begin their title defence at home to Swansea City, who will be looking to repeat their sensational opening day exploits from last season when they won 2-1 against United. World number 2 Maria Sharapova has pulled herself out of next week's Rogers Cup in Toronto after suffering a right leg strain. The Russian right-hander's withdrawal was announced on the tournament's Twitter feed, which has added that Romania's Simona Halep has now been elevated to second seed. World number 1 Serena Williams will be chasing her 4th Rogers Cup crown after wins in 2013, 2011 and 2001. Japan's Kei Nishikori will meet Croatia's Martin Cilic in the semi-finals of the City Open in Washington. Third seed Cilic who beat German teenager Alexander Zverev 7-5, 7-6 in the quarter-final, while second seed Nishikori ended the run of Australian qualifier Sam Groth 6-4, 6-4. The other semi-final will see American John Isner meet compatriot Steve Johnson after 8th seed Isner defeated Richard Bernakis of Lithuania 6-3, 5-7, 6-3. While Johnson upset 15th seed Jack Sock 7-6, 6-1. Canada's Mike Woods sprinted to a Stage 5 win on Friday to grab the overall lead to the Tour of Utah. In the 7th and final lap of the Salt Lake City area, Woods broke away from the pack for the final 300 meters to finish 55 total miles in 2 hours, 3 minutes and 49 seconds, just 2 seconds better than second-placed Italian Sonny Colbrelli and third-place American Keel Ragenit. Well, that's all from us. Thank you so much for watching from here at Rajya Sabha TV. Thanks so much. Bye.